Well, I can see by the way that you guys are dressed today that you love Christmas just as much as I do. And so we've been talking through the Christmas story, the Christmas message, pulling out some of the history of what was happening in the world around the world events leading up to that moment. I love the Christmas story. I love the Christmas season. I love everything about this December month. I love that our weather finally starts to cool off a little bit here, although today I'm in the sweater and I'm going to feel like T.D. Jakes up here in a moment, slinging some sweat. But I love the holiday season. I love the music. I love the decorations. I love the food. I love family gatherings and the festivities and the parties and the Christmas sweaters. Just yesterday, my family had our first gift exchange. We have a lot of family members that live out of state, and so they came in and they joined us all together yesterday at my mother's house. We did a gift exchange. I love the Christmas time. I love the Christmas season. It truly is absolutely the most wonderful time of the year. Yeah. One of the things that I love most, and maybe you can identify with this as well, one of the things I loved the most, when I was just a boy, my mom and I, we would get in the car every Christmas and we would drive around and look at the Christmas lights. Awesome, man. Whew. I'm going to need it before it's all said and done. How many of you love Christmas lights? You get in the car and that's part of what you do, and you drive around and you go look at Christmas lights. That was something we did every year. I loved that. My mom and I would do that. Now that I have children of my own, my wife and I, we load up our kids in the car and we drive around and we go look at the Christmas lights. This past week on Facebook, we put a little bit of a poll out there, and I just thought I would extend it to you guys too. Colored lights, multicolored lights, or white lights? How many of you would say white lights all the way through, okay? How many of you are multicolored lights? Okay, you're about 50-50 in here, okay? I was just curious about that. So I love the Christmas season. I know many of you love the Christmas season as well. It's the most wonderful time of the year. And yet, I know that as much as we love it and as wonderful as it is, that it's not the same for everyone. That, in fact, Christmas can be complicated. Christmas can be, indeed, complicated. I remember when I first got married. My wife and I have been married for 12 years now, and our first few Christmases were complicated. Christmas has those traditions about them. Sometimes they're ingrained in who we are, the way that we do family. And how many of you know that when you start messing with someone's traditions, especially their Christmas traditions, man, people can kind of get upset about that. People don't like change. You certainly don't go and change Christmas. And so for our first few Christmases, it was a little bit of a complication. There were some challenges as we had to navigate that. And Christmas can be complicated. There's something about it, as wonderful it is, as great as the holiday is, there can be these tensions. There's so much that we try to compress into this month of December that we just try to pack in there. And what can happen is ultimately it starts to exaggerate. If there's anything negative, maybe in relationships or something that we're feeling, it can be exaggerated during the Christmas time. And so Christmas can be complicated. There can be problems that we cannot solve. Things that maybe throughout the year that kind of sit on the back burner, but when Christmas comes around, maybe it's the people that we cannot control. And how many of you know we've all got that cousin Eddie in our family, right? We've got that one that we have to sit across the table from at Christmas time, and you're like, oh my gosh, what are you thinking? Why do you live your life that way? And you can't figure out why they think the way that they do or behave the way that they do, and they're looking at you like, you're the weirdo here. And we all have these relationships, the people that we can't control, and it makes Christmas indeed complicated. We all go into the holiday season and we have these sense of expectations. We have expectations sometimes that we put on ourselves, sometimes expectations that we put on those around us. And how many of you know that sometimes we just can't live up to those expectations? And so we feel let down, and so it makes Christmas complicated sometimes. And maybe more than anything, maybe during the Christmas season, you enter into a month, and when we get here, you are experiencing complication because of some of the losses that we grieve. Maybe for you, you are ingrained in tradition, you're ingrained in having those certain relationships around you, and you've had a great time growing up, and the Christmas season has always been a pleasant thing. But now, because that person that you love, that you wanted to spend the holidays with, that you have somewhere along the way that you've lost them. And now when you're in this season, you are reminded of what you will never get again. And so sometimes as Christmas is so great, it's so wonderful, it's the most wonderful time of the year, sometimes Christmas can indeed be complicated. And I don't want to move through this Christmas season and just assume that all is merry and bright. And I want us to be able to talk about this just for a little bit today. And what does Scripture teach us, and how does it convey the Christmas story, especially when it starts talking about these things that make it so complicated. And so if today you find yourself experiencing a Christmas that has some complications in it, I want to remind you, I think Scripture will indeed remind you of why this is indeed the greatest time of the year. And when we move into this season, it's not always great because of what's happening around us or what's happening in us, that it's great because of what happened. That it's great because at some point in time, we move into this month and we focus on one event. We focus on a moment. We focus on a time in history. For an entire month, we slow down and we anticipate. We look at the coming, the birth, the growing